Mr. Chen believed it was time to reveal the truth before something terrible happens and headed to Ming's residence. In the early 1990s, in the lively city of Hong Kong, a global symbol of modernity and innovation, something interesting exists. Here, the people embraced the existence of spiritual entities without hesitation. In fact, they were more open to accepting supernatural phenomena than people of many other cities. This distinctive characteristic was even reflected in the city's physical layout. Amidst the towering skyscrapers and bustling streets, a striking contrast is visible. A cemetery nestled right in the middle of urban landscape. Within the cemetery, people casually engaged in leisurely lunches and activities amidst the solemnity of gravestones. Among these people was Mr. Chen. In Hong Kong, there is a tradition in which they attach photos of deceased loved ones onto gravestones. One day, one of these photos must have been carried away by the wind and landed near Mr. Chen. As he gazed at the image of a beautiful young lady, he lamented her untimely demise. Yet a peculiar smile crossed his face, raising questions about his thoughts. It was the weekend, and Mr. Chen decided to pay a visit to his next-door neighbor, Ming, a recent arrival from mainland China. He was innocent and naive, with minimal education and a life of working on a farm, experiencing very little social interaction.
Hello, sir. Please, come in.
Ming courteously invited Mr. Chen. Mr. Chen commended his hard work, but suggested that he shouldn't spend the weekend cooped up at home watching videos all day. Instead, he encouraged Ming to explore the city and become a true Hong Konger. Then, Mr. Chen pulled out a photo of the deceased girl from the cemetery and shared it with Ming, claiming her to be his niece from Tianjin.
How about this girl? She is my niece from Tianjin. Isn't she pretty?
Ming raised an eyebrow. He observed that she bore no resemblance to Mr. Chen and questioned his seriousness. Mr. Chen chuckled at Ming's skepticism and playfully asked if he'd like to meet her. Ming, however, was hesitant and questioned his own worthiness. He doubted whether a girl as beautiful as her would have any interest in someone like him. Mr. Chen assured him that she would be visiting Hong Kong in a few weeks, and he promised to introduce her. However, Mr. Chen attached a condition to the introduction. The next day, Ming began helping Mr. Chen with household chores in exchange for the promise of meeting the girl. As time passed, Mr. Chen's demands on Ming increased, including tasks like cooking. Mr. Chen complained about how messy his house looked.
I'll clean it up, Mr. Chen.
Ming swiftly began cleaning the house. While his initial motivation was to express gratitude to Mr. Chen, who had promised to introduce him to his niece, there was a deeper reason. He wanted to look at her face every chance he got, the one he had seen in a photograph. To facilitate his daily visits to Mr. Chen's home, he used the pretense of helping with household chores. Ming was a young, innocent, naive soul, possessing a pure heart that had been marooned in solitude. Little did he know, the girl he eagerly anticipated meeting had already departed from this world. Despite never having exchanged words with her and having only glimpsed her image in a photograph, he had unknowingly fallen deeply in love with a departed soul. Meanwhile, Mr. Chen's wife started to grow concerned about the web of lies and urged him to stop. However, Mr. Chen reassured her that he could handle the situation as he watched Ming continue to take care of the chores from a distance. Ming abruptly stopped and shifted his gaze toward Mr. Chen. Startled, Mr. Chen feared that Ming might have overheard his conversation with his wife. Ming then approached Mr. Chen and inquired about the girl's name. With a sigh of relief, Mr. Chen recalled the name inscribed on the gravestone.
It's Mei Xian.
Ming remarked on the beauty of her name, repeating it softly. Mr. Chen thought to himself,
That dumb, gullible, naive kid. Should I tell him now? No, not now. My life has been much easier without those house chores these days. What's he going to do even if he finds out?
Another day passed, and Mr. Chen received news about his ailing mother in Tianjin. As he prepared to leave, Ming noticed him packing and asked about his plans.
Tianjin, are you going to pick her up?
Ming asked excitedly. He offered to help carry the luggage, but Mr. Chen declined. That evening, Ming couldn't sleep due to the excitement of finally getting the chance to meet the girl he had longed for. He had been eagerly anticipating her arrival, wondering about the sound of her voice, which he imagined would be as enchanting as her smile. Sleep seemed impossible unless he could at least see her face in the picture once more. Determined to calm his restless heart, Ming decided to visit Mr. Chen's house, hoping that his wife would let him in. He called out hello, but no response. He reached for the doorknob, and to his surprise, the door swung open. Without hesitation, he made his way straight to the picture. Just then, a phone began to ring, catching him off guard. Uncertain about answering someone else's phone, he allowed it to ring until it eventually went to voicemail. The greeting message played.
Hello, we are not home right now, but if you leave a message, we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Bye.
Honey, I just arrived. Mom is doing better now. How is that kid doing? What a gullible stupid he is. He will never find out that I picked up that picture from the cemetery. Don't tell him anything. I'll tell him the truth when I get there.
Ming's both knees fall to the floor. A week had gone by when Mr. Chen returned from Tianjin. He asked his wife if she had shared anything with Ming. Her answer was a simple no, but she went on to tell something intriguing. She mentioned that Ming had been noticeably happier lately, often sporting a smile on his face. What was even more peculiar was his habit of talking as if someone is there in front of him. Mr. Chen believed it was time to reveal the truth before something terrible happens and headed to Ming's residence. Before knocking on the door, he peeked through the window and saw something shocking. The house was a mess. The girl's photo lay shattered on the floor, and Ming sat at the dining table, conversing as if someone occupied the opposite seat.
Mei Xian, how do you like my cooking? I made it with the best quality ingredients.
Mr. Chen hesitated for a moment, but then he heard Ming's voice. He quickly retreated back to his house, put his ear close to the window, and listened.
Mei Xian, I'll take you back home. Be careful where you step. It's too dark outside.
Ming seemed to be speaking to the girl, planning to escort her home. Mr. Chen was deeply confused. The girl is dead, but Ming was behaving as if she were right there. Hours had passed, and Mr. Chen heard footsteps outside. He confronted Ming, asking where he had been at such a late hour.
To the local cemetery. Mei Xian wanted to go back home.
Ming replied. Mr. Chen recalled that the local cemetery was where he had first found Mei Xian's picture. Could this mean that Mei Xian's spirit had truly visited Ming? Intrigued and bewildered, Mr. Chen went to Mei Xian's grave to investigate and made a shocking discovery. The ashes urn that should have been inside the grave was missing.
Hey Ming, to tell you the truth.
Ming interrupted him.
I already know, and it doesn't matter anymore. I can now see Mei Xian whenever I want. She visits me whenever I feel lonely.
No, that's impossible. She is dead.
No, Mei Xian is always by my side since that day.
Honey, I just arrived. Mom is doing better now. How is that kid doing? What a gullible stupid he is. He will never find out that I picked up that picture from the cemetery. Don't tell him anything. I'll tell him the truth when I get there.
Ming recalled. He couldn't believe it when he first heard the shocking news. The time he spent waiting for her felt longer than ever. The girl he has been waiting for is a dead person. It was hard to believe at first, but as it turned out, it was true. He rushed to her grave and began to dig. The moment he confirmed everything, it felt like the world was collapsing. How could you love someone you had never even met? Indeed, it exists in this world, at least for Ming. In fact, she had come to visit him in some inexplicable way. At first, he resented the man who deceived him. However, the overwhelming feeling of loss, the realization that there was nothing left to love or wait for, overshadowed any bitterness he felt. In that moment of despair, when the world seemed hazy and devoid of hope, a single thought emerged in his mind. Ming's mind wandered back to a documentary he had seen before, one that depicted indigenous people who practiced the tradition of consuming the ashes of their deceased loved one. They held a belief that this ritual would ensure their departed loved ones remained a part of them for eternity. This act defied common sense. But from that moment forward, same conviction took hold within the Ming's heart. He truly believed that Mei Xian's spirit came and remained beside him. Each time he reverently consumes her ashes, he felt her presence draw near. Mr. Chen found it difficult to believe that the young man was consuming the ashes of the deceased, which he found both bizarre and disrespectful. Alarmed by this behavior, he promptly reported it to the police, leading to Ming's questioning at the police station. After the initial investigation, authorities made the decision to transfer the individual to a mental hospital for a more comprehensive evaluation and testing. To their surprise, the test results indicated signs of intoxication resulting from drug use. As drug enforcement tightened its grip in Hong Kong, a notorious drug gang found themselves in desperate need of a secure hiding spot for their illicit substances. In pursuit of their evil plans, they settled on the unconventional choice of a cremation urn nestled within a gravesite, replacing its contents with white substances that they believed could fool the world. They were even convinced that nobody would dare to suggest the presence of narcotics beneath a grave, relying on the sanctity of such a place to protect their secret. To execute this plan, the gang sought out an individual with no known family ties. Their unsuspecting target happened to be a young woman who had recently arrived in Hong Kong from the mainland China. She was a lost soul, wandering aimlessly under the mesmerizing glow of the city's neon signs, with nowhere to call home. Little did she know that the ominous shadow of death was about to cast its chilling presence over Hong Kong, entangling her fate in its cruel web. Did Mei Xian visited Ming? Was it truly the spirit of Mei Xian? Or was it merely a hallucination induced by drugs?